Hello and welcome back to Beyond the Grave. It's been a little moment since I've uploaded. I've been moving house, we've had a few things going on, but guess what? You can see my face now for whatever that is worth. Also, side note, I have a bloodshot eye. I haven't been blazing doobies. I don't know where it's come from, but let's get into the video today. The Exorcist, released in 1973, is a stone cold classic. And the story about how this film was made is just as interesting as the movie itself. So without any further delays, let's unpack the truth behind how The Exorcist was made.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
So, our story starts in 1949 when William Peter Blatty was a student at Georgetown University. Whilst at university, he read about the alleged exorcism of a 14-year-old boy. Oh, yeah, side note, in case you didn't know, despite everyone and their dog knowing, this is based on a true story, allegedly. So, yeah, back to the video. The details of the newspaper article have been debated and sensationalized over the years, but nevertheless, they stuck with Blatty. And then more than 2 decades later, he turned that real-life inspiration into the 1971 novel, The Exorcist. The book became a bestseller, and naturally, Hollywood came calling. Blatty adopted his own novel for the screen and would produce the movie, whilst William Friedkin eventually ended up in the director's chair. William Friedkin's main goal as the director was to make everything look and feel as real as possible. Listen, I'm a level with you here. In 1973, this probably felt like the most terrifying thing ever made. But since the advent of found footage films and films that, maybe feel more grounded and feel more real, it doesn't hold up in that sense. And, there is aspects of this film which are genuinely still pretty cool. But I watched it the other day. There are parts that are really funny. Let's move past it and sit in the time. And yeah, this probably was absolutely terrifying for the time. So Friedkin wanted to try and make something that felt real, almost like a documentary, like we were watching a real life exorcism. And to be fair, growing up, when I was a kid, me and my friends, The Exorcist was one of those things that we were the most terrified of, especially playing the Scary Maze game. Let me know in the comments below if you played the Scary Maze game. I'm sure everybody did. It's a rite of passage, but The Exorcist was genuinely one of the things we were most scared of, which leads us on nicely to the next part of the story, the casting of Regan. Now, this is something the production were always going to have trouble with, because what you're essentially doing is asking a very young actor to carry the most terrifying film ever made up until this point. The role eventually went to teenage newcomer Linda Blair, but Regan's iconic demonic voice wasn't actually Blair's alone. Award-winning actress Mercedes McCambridge provided the demon's terrifying vocals. And by the way, she went to some absolutely insane lengths to get the voice down. She was famously known for using things like raw eggs and cigarettes to give her voice a really unnatural tone. She even had herself physically restrained during recording to help produce the demon's strained breathing and movements. Her performance became one of the most recognizable voices in horror history. And yet, when The Exorcist was originally released, McCambridge wasn't even credited on screen. Following a dispute over recognition, her credit was later added. Sorry, I had to switch to a voiceover because someone was doing construction next door and it was quieter in the back room, but my set isn't there, so I didn't want to have that inconsistency, so I figured let's just do a voiceover for the remainder of the video. Anyways, let's move on. The voice was only one part of transforming Regan's world. Makeup legend Dick Smith created the increasingly horrific possessed appearance, and Smith had another massive challenge: Father Merrin. Merrin was played by legendary actor Max von Sydow. Now, von Sydow looks elderly in this movie, but when The Exorcist was filmed, he was only 43 years old. Hey, listen, if you've watched The Exorcist your whole life without knowing that, yep, that man is in his early 40s. And now we come to Regan's bedroom. Whenever the demon is present, the room feels absolutely freezing, and that's because it was. Instead of simply using special effects to fake the actor's breath, the filmmakers refrigerated the bedroom set. It became cold enough for their breath to be visible on camera. So when you watch those intense exorcism scenes and everyone looks like they're absolutely miserable, chances are they probably were. But Friedkin was absolutely obsessed with authenticity throughout the movie, and sometimes his methods crossed the line. In one famous example, Friedkin wanted a genuine emotional reaction from Father Dyer, who was played by William O'Malley. And O'Malley wasn't just playing a priest, he was an actual Catholic priest. Before filming the emotional scene following Caris's fall, Friedkin unexpectedly slapped O'Malley across the face to provoke a genuine reaction. The visibly shaken performance that followed was captured on camera. It was a different era of filmmaking filmmaking, and it's definitely not something that I would recommend that you try on your next student film. Even worse moment happened to Ellen Burstyn. During the scene where the possessed Regan violently throws Chris backwards, Burstyn was attached to a hidden stunt harness. During one take, she was violently yanked backwards and injured her back. The scream you hear in the movie is Burstyn's genuine reaction to the pain, and Friedkin used that take. It's one of those scenes that becomes harder to watch once you know the real pain happening behind the camera. And then there's one of the most famous scenes associated with The Exorcist, the spider walk. Regan bends backwards and crawls down the staircase like some fucking human nightmare. Absolutely crazy, except if you watched The Exorcist in the cinema in 1973, you did not see this. The scene was filmed using a contortionist, but Friedkin ultimately removed it from the original theatrical cut. One of the problems was that the wires helping perform the stunt were visible. Decades later, digital technology had moved on enough that the wires were able to be removed, and the spider walk was restored to the 2000 release of the film, meaning one of the most iconic images associated with The Exorcist wasn't even part of the original movie. How crazy is that? Filming for The Exorcist ran between August 1972 and continued well into 1973. One fact about this movie is that the film wasn't shot entirely in America. That eerie archaeological sequence at the beginning was actually shot in Iraq. Friedkin had to negotiate arrangements with the political party in Iraq because the United States didn't have normal diplomatic relations with the country at the time. Part of the arrangement involved hiring a large number of Iraqi crew members and teaching them filmmaking techniques, including how to create fake blood. All of that for the opening of a horror movie. And then, on December 26, 1973, The Exorcist arrived in cinemas, and it became a cultural phenomenon. Stories spread of audience members fainting, vomiting, and fleeing the screenings. But underneath all the controversy and shock value was something people sometimes forget in this day and age. This movie was taken seriously. The Exorcist received a staggering 10 Academy Award nominations, and it won 2, including Best Adapted Screenplay for William Peter Blatty, and more than 50 years later, we're still talking about it. Or at least I'm still talking about it. And that is the truth behind how The Exorcist was made. I did plan on doing this whole video on camera, but it didn't really quite work out, so it ended up being an amalgamation of voiceover and on screen. But yeah, it's by the by. Anyways, before you guys go, I do have a quick call to arms to make. If you enjoy horror movies and you enjoy finding out how they were made, please consider subscribing to my channel. In a world where the airwaves are polluted by AI BS, I'm trying to build something authentic on this channel. So if you love horror content and you want to support horror creators, please consider subscribing. It would mean the absolute world to me. And I'll see you guys very soon.